Okay, so I just picked up the Cooler Master Storm Novatouch TKL keyboard. I haven't even opened it yet, haven't looked at it. This is their hybrid capacitive switches, also known as the Topre keys. Never typed on them before, but this is going to be like a completely unfiltered first experience with this type of key mechanism. For comparison, later on I have over here my main keyboard right now, which is a Corsair K70 Vengeance with Cherry MX brown switches. And behind that I have my old main, which is a Logitech K750, I think is the model. And that's a solar powered membrane keyboard, but it's also got like the scissor mechanism. But anyway, that was my keyboard before I switched to mechanical keys. So we're just going to go ahead and open this and do a first experience, and I'll just give you my thoughts as I go through it. So here we go. It looks like this is magnetized. Yes, it is. That's always cool. Yeah, got a big magnet going through here. That's cool. Not really necessary, but that's cool. Alright, let's take a look. Oh! And yeah, it's a pretty basic looking keyboard, but the claim to fame for this is not the look, it's the mechanism of the keys. So let's go ahead and take this out. Being careful not to type on any of the keys yet until I get it on a flat surface. Wow, for its size, this is pretty heavy. I know some people were saying in their reviews that it's fairly light, but for something this size, I think it's kind of heavy. Now I'm not going to go through like the whole unboxing stuff because obviously there's, you know, O-rings, a cable, and a key puller in there. We don't really care about those right now. I'm not even going to hook it up to the computer yet. I just want to type on it and see what it's like. So let me put the box off to the side here. Alright, and make sure we're in a good spot for the camera. And here we go. Alright, okay, so my immediate first reaction is it's much, I don't really know, softer than I expected. It almost feels like there's like a rubbery resistance to the key, which I guess makes sense because there is a membrane underneath this. The cherry switches almost have like a scraping, as you push them down, they almost have like a scrape to them, which is the mechanical metal actuator rubbing against the piece of plastic on the inside of the switch and eventually surpassing that to make contact farther down in the mechanism. So I guess that makes sense, but you don't really get that sensation from this at all. Obviously, much quieter, so let's just type then. So one thing I notice off the bat here, after that, is if you can see this, the tab key here, let's see if I can zoom in. Its lettering is actually kind of half off the switch. And for a $150 plus keyboard, to me that's kind of unacceptable. If you're going to print on your keys, make sure the printing is actually on the key. So yeah, that's slightly disappointing, I guess. There's a little bit of play to the keys if you just move them back and forth, but that's pretty much on par with what you get from the Cherry MX stems, so I'm guessing that's probably what's going on here. Yeah, okay, it doesn't look like any other visual defects that I can see right now. It just looks like the tab key is kind of, you know, off center there. Let's do a little bit more typing on this so I can get a feel for it. Alright, now for comparison, we'll type on all three of these in sequence so you can hear the difference between all of them. Alright, so first the Novatouch keys. Okay, same sort of test over here. All right. Okay, so now I've got both the Novatouch and the Corsair lined up right next to each other, just so I can do some really in-depth comparisons of the key actuation for anybody who was wondering what it's like to type on a Topre keyboard, Novatouch, whatever you want to call it, versus a mechanical Cherry MX keyboard, specifically Cherry MX Browns. So, okay, something that's interesting here, you get a sort of feel of a membrane keyboard in that as you start to push down the key, it's initially fairly hard, but then all of a sudden it just picks up, and then the majority of the rest of the keyboard, of the key press rather, is consistent until you bottom out. And when you bottom out, there's a little bit of squish, and I think that's the compression of the actual membrane underneath the key, whereas on the Cherry key, once you bottom out, you know, you cannot go any farther. I don't care what kind of plate you put under a piece of rubber, there's going to be some flex. On the Cherry keys, there's not. Once you're bottomed out, that is it. And that's one of the things they say is supposed to be good on the Topre keyboard, is that there's less fatigue because of that, because you don't bottom out into something so hard. It feels like I'm pressing down on a mouse pad versus a table directly. That's sort of the comparison, I guess you could say. As far as actuation on I haven't actually hooked this up to the computer yet, so I don't know where the actuation point is. I believe, according to what I've read, it's 1 millimeter from the top of the key press. So that seems like to me by the time I get past that initial sort of resistance before the rest of the smooth actuation, I've already actuated the key. That's my guess anyway. On the Cherry MX Browns, as I'm sure you know if you've typed on these, you can press the key down a little bit without actually actuating the key. So you got maybe a millimeter and a half of play before you actually, boom, actuate the key. So that's definitely a difference here, is that you don't have any sense of, just from pressing the key, there's really no sense of where the actuation point might be. I mean, you can sort of assume that it's past the initial sort of resistance there, but I don't know, without hooking up to the computer, it's impossible to know. And because of that, I feel like on the Cherry keys, because I'm used to them, when I type, I don't actually really bottom them out that hard, but on these keys here, because there's so much more of like a rubbery feel to it, I'm not really sure where the actuation is happening, so it's going to take some time to get used to. Obviously, so did this, coming from a scissor mechanism or any other type of normal membrane keyboard. as far as double presses, like, pretty much by the time my finger is off of this key, it's already, you know, it's already back up. I feel like there's a little bit longer of a period of time on the Cherry MX Brown from the time where I release to the time where the key actually resets. On this, it's pretty much instant. Like, I feel like I could just sit here and just do that, you know, forever and ever. I feel like a little bit slowed down on the Cherry keys as compared to this for that sort of thing. And one thing I used to do a lot is, which I don't find myself doing on this keyboard very much, is I used to use 2 fingers on the backspace key rather than just holding it down, because I could actually count the number of presses better than just, you know, waiting and looking at the screen. But I find myself not really doing that very much on these because it's a lot harder. On this, my suspicion is I'm going to be able to do that a lot more easily now. And even with something like the spacebar, not that you would really do this if you were gaming or something, but it is important to be able to, you know, spam the keys as fast as you can. Now, one of the good things about the Cherry keys, you know, in contrast to that, is if you know where your actuation point is, you can sort of hover around that and just keep actuating the key without actually, you know, fully resetting it. You can just kind of keep going. On this, not sure if you'll be able to do that or not, but yeah, I don't know. Alright, next part, I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to the computer so I can actually give you some meaningful results. Okay, so for the last part of this video, it's just going to be what is it like to type on this keyboard in a real world circumstance here. So, got my computer right in front of me, got the keyboard hooked up. I should say that it took 0 time to install, like it basically just plugged it in. There was no drivers or anything like that. It's just, you get what you get. That being said, the actual act of plugging it in was a little awkward. This right angle plug comes out to the left, which that's fine, so it won't interfere with my mouse cable. But it was a little difficult to get in, and now that it's in, it's got a little bit of play to it here, and I don't know how I feel about that. If I wanted to pull it out, I mean, okay, if I rock it to the side, it's not coming out, but yeah, I guess it's pretty good in there. Yeah, I'd say that's fairly good. Let's see if I can get it plugged back in there now. Okay. It just doesn't feel like it plugs in very securely. I don't know, maybe I'm just overly suspicious of using a micro USB connector for a keyboard. But you know what? Even if this cable breaks, I can just replace it. So that's, you know, that's another good thing. Still kind of irritated about that tab key. I mean, yeah, I know it's the tab key, but come on. A simple, you know, visual inspection would have failed because the key cap just needs to be replaced. But whatever. All right, so let's go ahead and type some sentences here. Alright, so next I'm going to attempt to type a sentence. This is a test, and I'm going to capitalize every word in it, and we'll see how that goes. That was pretty good. I like the way that the shift key actuates. I think that's got a good feel to it. Let's see if I can double tap on it. I can indeed. I guess the actuation point is like, well, let's see here. I'm going to start pushing down on this key, and I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to tell you when it actually actuates on the computer. So, alright, what's the best way to do this? This will probably work, okay. Alright, so first I'm just going to do it. The feeling I get when I press it is that it actuates pretty much towards the bottom of the key press, but that could be just me, the way I'm perceiving it. So let's go ahead and try and do this really slowly here. Alright, so I definitely, okay, so there's some sponge in the top here. The key is not actuating. Alright, I'm just going to keep pushing down. Alright, so I got it to actuate there, so let's see here. Now, alright. Now. I'm going to go ahead and say that I do not think that the actuation point on this is 1 millimeter down. So I'm not sure where I read that, but I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that's incorrect. I think this is more like, oh, let's see. Okay. Sorry, just doing some testing here. I'm going to go ahead and say it's more like halfway down, maybe even a little bit farther than halfway down. Let's zoom this back out. Okay. Yeah, it feels fairly far down the key, actually. Also, as you're releasing the key, it almost feels like exponential in the way that the key lets off. So initially, there's not much force pressing back against you, but then as you keep letting up, it begins to pop back up. And I think that's really where the membrane aspect of this keyboard is shining through. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because it seems to be a non-linear return force, whereas the actual press down seems very linear. Now, I guess a side effect of that is that the key seems to pop back very quickly, but you do have this sort of rubbery sensation and membrane sensation when you let off the key of once you get towards the top again, it really letting off with a lot more force than it initially does. Yeah, this is definitely, I would say, closer to a membrane keyboard than it is to a mechanical keyboard. I have the Cherry keyboard still over to the side here, so I'm just going to type on it real quick. Okay, so the sensation you get on this is, initially it's sort of unclear where the actuation actually is happening. It's somewhere in the middle of the key, and if you're I don't really find myself missing any keys, like thinking that I press them and not actually pressing them, but I do feel like I'm having to actually travel the key a lot farther than I do on the Cherry keyboard. But I think that over time I could actually get used to that and become a fairly quick typer on this. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to do for this review is a type comparison in terms of speed and accuracy, so let's just go ahead and try that in real time in the next segment. Alright, so for this last segment I'm going to attempt to do a typing test on this keyboard to see what I get, and then immediately after I'm going to put the Cherry MX Corsair K70 back in front of me, do the same test, and see what my words per minute is with that and my accuracy, and I'll give you the results. So, here we go. This is 1 minute of Aesop's Fables. That's pretty bad. Okay, now I'm not claiming I'm the fastest typer in the world anyway, but I got 68 words per minute, and I had 91% accuracy, which makes my score 62 words per minute. Alright, so now I've got the Corsair K70 back in front of me with the Cherry MX Browns, and we're going to restart this test. 1 minute Aesop's Fables once again. Now this is going to be slightly biased because it's the same text, but you know, we'll take this for what it is. So here we go. Okay, so on the Cherry keyboard I got 78 words per minute, but I had 9 errors. That's 88% accuracy, which is down from 91% on the other keyboard, making my adjusted speed 69 words per minute. So apparently I'm more error prone on the Cherry keys, but I'm also faster. Not by much, but somewhat faster. So I think with practice on the Novatouch I can actually become just as fast, if not faster, than I am on the Vengeance. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this set of videos. Had fun making it. I'm going to keep typing on the Novatouch now for a while and see how it goes. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.